Point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, center. If you have any type of basketball knowledge or experience, you know that these are the 5 positions or roles that a player on a team plays. In traditional terms, the point guard normally is the floor general, the shooting guard more often than not is the scorer on the team, the small forward is the versatile player on the team who could do a little bit of everything, the power forward is the big who's a little bit more mobile and versatile, being able to do a little bit of everything like the small forward, depending on the skill set, and the center is the big who protects and dominates the paint. These positions have been a part of basketball since the 50s, and as the game began to evolve, the more defined these positions became that helped teams put their players in specific roles in order to help their team win. While I do agree with the idea that different players have different roles to play on the team, in today's NBA, I don't see the players playing the same traditional 5 positions you would see teams play in the past. If you even look back in NBA history, there have been times teams didn't put players in the position they would traditionally play, often to put players in the position that highlighted their skill set. The most popular player, in my opinion, to think about from the past who didn't follow the traditional position model is Magic Johnson. A player the size of most power forwards and even some centers playing point guard and being arguably the greatest ever to play that position. Magic was the first player in NBA history to sort of destroy the strict idea of positions and what a point guard should look like. The evolution of positionless basketball didn't happen right after Magic came into the league though. It took time for the game to evolve into the game that we see today. The key word I would use to describe what teams are looking for when adding players to their roster today is versatility. What are the things you are able to do on the court? The more that you can do, the better. The way I see the game, especially in this era of NBA basketball, there are 3 specific positions you could really categorize players on the basketball court. The first category is your point guards, or floor generals, or on-ball initiators, whatever name you like best. These are the players that get you into your offensive sets and is orchestrating the offense similar to a quarterback in football. If he does his job poorly, the entire team will be affected and they won't be at their best. These are your Lukas, your Brons, your SGAs, your Brunsons, your Jaws, your Trays, your Garlands. The players on the court who play make, I consider to be point guards, whether that be creating a shot for yourself or someone else. If that's your role, your responsibility, or your specialized skill set you possess on the court, I consider you to be a point guard. Then the next category I believe you could put players in is your wings or your off-ball initiators. This position could be comparable to a small forward in the 5-position model. These are the players on the court who play more off the ball and is easily the most versatile player on the team more times than not. There are exceptions, but more times than not, they are the most versatile player on the team. There are multiple roles these players can play on the team. They can play a spot-up shooting role. They can play the shot creator role. They can play the versatile defender role. These can be your Paul Georges, your Kevin Durant's, your Tatum's, your Ingrams, your Clays, your Drews. The more versatile you are at this position, the more valuable you are to your team, and the more money you're more likely going to make in the league. Then the last category you have are your bigs, comparable to the center in the 5-position model. Bigs have evolved the most when looking back at the history of the NBA, with all the bigs we consider to be in the top echelon of today's NBA having some type of guard skill set to their game, whether that be them being a lethal shooter or a capable playmaker. Players like Jokic, AD, Wemby, Porzingis, Embiid, Adebayo are unicorns. We have never seen bigs at this size be this skilled and this capable with the ball in their hands. They honestly had no choice but to evolve the way the game was heading. Small ball became a popular concept during the 2010s. It completely changed basketball the way that we knew it. Putting out a lineup where all 5 players on the court are capable shooters creates so much space with the defense not being able to cheat as much to help. This, as a result, caused teams to play more of a switch brand of basketball on the defensive side of the floor as they began to see more and more of these types of lineups to try and counter the fact that they can't help as much off of shooters. But in order for you to play a switch style of defense, you have to have the personnel in order to have the matchup still make sense, which as a result changed what teams valued. Instantly, the best thing a player could provide for a team is versatility, specifically on the defensive side of the floor. Draymond Green and Andre Iguodala's versatility on the defensive side of the floor is what made the Warriors a top defense in the league. Look at Boston. The fact that Tatum, Brown, Horford, and Holiday can guard multiple positions is what makes them so good today. In the very first game this year, Holiday was literally matched up with Cat. Not just randomly in the course of the game he got matched up with him. That was Boston's strategy at tip-off. Drew Holiday is 6'4". Cat is 7 foot tall. But that's the type of NBA we live in today. We live in an era where lineups with no traditional center on the floor and 3-guard lineups and small ball lineups and cross matchups are the new norm. Now, with that said, just because the NBA is positionless doesn't mean just any lineup will work. There are still roles that need to be filled on the team. For example, look at last year's version of the Phoenix Suns, who literally had no traditional point guard on their roster. They brought in Brad Beal to create a big three with Booker and Durant, and they thought that they would be able to figure out how to win without having a true point guard on the roster. And while the majority of their inconsistent play came from injuries, you see this year the Suns added a true point guard to their roster with Tyus Jones. And that's because the experiment with no traditional point guard on the roster didn't work, with them last year having the worst offensive net rating in the fourth quarter, with it being a negative 11.6. Being the point guard and the floor general of a team is a skill. It's not something that can be just replaced by just anyone. They do things on the court that you just can't measure by stat. Now, at the same time, I understand the idea of not wanting to take the ball out of your best player's hands. You want them with the ball during the tight stretches of the game. I get that, which is why I love the Tyus Jones pickup. Someone who isn't hungry for shots, but capable of hitting the shots when he's left open, and he can control the pace of the game. That's who Tyus Jones is. Not taking the ball out of the big three's hands, but giving them another ball handler for tight situations. Now, while there are roles on the team that need to be filled, there are some players in the league right now that honestly, you can't even put them in a position. They're just basketball players that you throw on the floor, and they impact the game on a multitude of levels like we have never seen before. Can you name someone in NBA history that resembles a Giannis Antetokounmpo? A 6'11", 250-pound monster who could put the ball on the floor, guard any position on the court, pass, shoot, and has a psychopathic competitiveness on the court? Or do you have a historical comp for a Kevin Durant? Someone who stands nearly 7 foot tall, who has guard skills, a lethal jumper from anywhere on the court, while being able to guard multiple positions on the defensive side of the floor. And don't get me started on Wemby, man. These players in the league today are some of the most unique players we have ever seen in the NBA. Players so unique that they can't be classified as just a small forward or a center or just shooting guard. Think about a player like Steph Curry, who many people, including myself, consider to be the greatest point guard ever. He's comfortable, however, playing both on and off the ball. Curry is capable of just running pick and roll with the ball in his hands and going to work, but he's actually best utilized playing off the ball because of the stress he puts on the defense with his movements. Like I've said multiple times in this video, players who are capable of playing multiple positions and roles are more valuable in the league. So now we have a league filled with hybrid players who can play multiple roles and positions. Players like PG, Tatum, Luka, Bam, Derek White, Zion, AD, Siakam, Bridges, Mobley, Horford. Look around the league, even with the teams that we aren't paying much attention to. Scotty Barnes, Cam Johnson, Jabari Smith Jr., Malcolm Brogdon. Being able to guard multiple positions used to make you special as a player. There have been countless players in NBA history that made careers out of just being able to guard multiple positions. But nowadays, it's almost a standard. If you're big and you can't switch onto a guard and not get blown by, then you're considered a liability. I remember the days when a guard would get switched onto a big and it used to be an automatic 2 points. These guards used to make these bigs look silly. But nowadays, when I see a big switch onto a guard, it's nothing guaranteed that the guard will get off a good look. But how is the game being affected by positionless basketball on the offensive side of the floor? The obvious answer everyone might be thinking is everyone having the ability to shoot threes, and without a doubt, three-point shooting is the biggest difference between today's game and how the game was played in the past, with nearly everyone in the league having a capable three-point shot. Looking back at the entire history of the NBA, I don't think players have ever been this hard to guard. The talent these players possess with the ball in their hands is incredible. Many of these shots not even 10 years ago would be considered horrible shots, but times have changed. In today's NBA, if you have two players on the court at the same time who can't space the floor, you're going to have a hard time scoring the basketball. It's just not sustainable with teams today having too much firepower on offense for you to be able to keep up with just scoring twos. Not only are the players more talented than ever, but offensive concepts have become more sophisticated as well. I know it seems like every time down is just pick and roll or iso ball, and while that does go on sometimes, especially during regular season games, I promise you there is more going on with these offenses. You just have to pay attention and know what to look for. One concept that I think it's obvious that we see a lot more in today's NBA than in the past is bigs taking the role of a guard sometimes and initiating the offense. Players like Jokic, Bam, and Sabonis are having the offense run through them mainly from the perimeter or from the elbows. The advantage this brings is that it just opens up the paint for guards, especially if the big is a threat to score from the perimeter, which Jokic, Bam, and Sabonis are capable of doing. This forces the big out of the paint, creating more space for guards to make unpredictable off-ball movements and not worry about having to help big rotating and affecting their shots. Long gone are the days where bigs do all their work in the paint with post-ups, with posting up being one of the least executed actions now in today's NBA. As for the guards, offensively not being able to space the floor makes you a massive liability. Some bigs can still get away with not having a jump shot depending on what else they're bringing to the table, whether that may be rebounding, rim protection, rim running. There's still ways for them to make a positive impact on the game. But as for guards, nah, they don't get that luxury. You have to have a jump shot in today's NBA if you're a guard. And not only do you have to have a jump shot, but you more times than not as a guard, you have to be comfortable playing both on and off the ball. Traditional labels like point guard and shooting guard are often blurred in today's game. Like we talked about with Curry earlier in the video, what makes him so dangerous is his ability to be a threat without having the ball in his hands. Now, there are some teams that still have specific systems and personnel in place that force their guards to have more of an on-ball responsibility. But players like Donovan Mitchell, Kyrie Irving, Derek White, they're often asked to be effective both on and off the ball, depending on things like matchup, who might be on that night, who might be in and out of the lineup that night, etc. A guard who is capable of being both on and off the ball is more valuable than a guard who isn't capable of doing both and is only best if he is exclusively on or off the ball. Even though the game might be changing, we may see teams continue to add wrinkles that we consider to be unorthodox. At the end of the day, it's still basketball. It's the same beautiful game we all fell in love with at one point in our lives. It's just a different version. This version of basketball is not the same version of basketball we watched a decade ago. Is it better or worse? That's a topic for another video. But those are just some of my thoughts, man. That's the end of the video. If you enjoyed, please make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to help the channel grow. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.